candidates, that's you, what are your plans to empower and give assistance to senior citizens, PWDs, and the youth in your local areas?
Well, right now, I would like to inform the body or the representative participants that the senior citizens in the city of Cebu and also the PWDs, we give 12,000 a year as financial assistance. And this financial assistance basically is coming from the taxes of the city government. If I would understand that if the taxes goes up, well, the assistance will be going up too.
Well, that's good. The second question is with regards to the 4Ps. If the 4Ps project is continued, how would you cut off the people's dependence on its sustenance? Do you think it's sustainable? If not, do you have a project in mind more sustainable than the 4Ps project? That's a question from a UP student.
Well, the first is the financial assistance and the other one is development. I don't believe in giving assistance financially. The second thing is the development. I would support that.
Okay. We have a question from, it's Ryan.
Sir, you talked a little bit about your approach to curbing drug use and drug crimes here in Cebu City. And one of our presidential candidates has been very outspoken about how he would use enforcement, basically a law enforcement and military approach into curbing drug use and crimes around the country. Here in Cebu City in particular, what would be your approach in reducing this big problem that also affects our city where, HIV, we have the highest HIV rates in the country, which is it's very intertwined with the drug use problems. And we've seen in the past couple of months where drug crimes where people are being killed, police officers even being killed by people involved in the drug trade. So what would be your approach in curbing this problem here in Cebu City?
I would say that the root of this drug problem is actually education and unemployment. What is important to me, I'm not the mayor, I'm not the implementer, I am actually a legislator. What is important to me is to legislate laws that would give preference to education. Education, then work, employment, then for me, that will lower down the problem of drugs. Killing people might not be a good idea. That's my personal opinion. Giving work, giving education, and for me, that will work.
Okay, so my next question, sir, is because I can't help but notice that you were a bit pessimistic about the implementation of the anti-dynasty bill when you said a while ago. Yet you recognize that there is in fact a need to implement or create a bill that would allow us to democratize more our elections. So as a part of the executive, even if you have a quasi-legislative power, as a part of the executive branch, how do you plan on executing a particular bill if the anti-dynasty bill is passed? If you're very pessimistic about it or if you have doubts about it?
Well, again, from what I have said, I don't think that this anti-dynasty bill will prosper. Because as you know, the people who are making this are actually the people who are the relatives and friends and even fathers and mothers of the politicians. How can this be implemented?
So how do you plan on, do you have an alternative proposal to stopping dynasties in our political?
No, you cannot stop it, actually. Because, the voters are lured with money. The only thing is that the constituents or the voters should be informed. Because the voters are the one that will vote.
Okay. So my next question, sir, is that I've also noticed that you are very green or eco-friendly in your lifestyle. You have solar panels in your homes, and you were the first one to own that machine that calculates how much you consume. And I commend you for that, for being very eco-friendly. But I have to ask you, how do you plan on translating that to the ordinary person in which you?
Okay, this is right now. It's very expensive. But I would understand from the calculations that I made, the return of investment is 9 years. Why? Because there is a very unfair charging. I would like to tell you that if I have a big power plant, solar power plant, the government will pay 9 pesos. If we have 1 kilowatt, there are two kinds of, we call as customers. Now, one is the residential. We are the residential. And the other one is the big generators. Although we are consumers, if we have a solar panel at our house, we are still a generator. But we are small generators, right? So you have the small generator and you have the big generator. The big generators are being paid by about 9 pesos. The small generators, which is us, were being paid 5 pesos. So what is important here is that the government should realize that this is unfair to small generators. What is important here is that we, the studentry and the population of the city and the Filipinos should rally and tell the government that, look, if you want that the renewable energy to prosper, the price should be the same. And if the return now of investment would be 3 years, most of us will be putting solar panels at our house. And, well, right now, this is very expensive. It might be expensive, like a car. It's about 800,000. But in a car, you are going to give gasoline every day to that car. If you are going to put a solar panel in your house, you will be given 200 a day. So this is a very nice proposition. But again, if the government will see to it that these small generators will be given preference, they give actually 9 pesos, let's say, then the return of investment would be very less. 3 years na lang. If that would be 3 years, most of us would be putting solar panels at our house.
All right, so we have a question from the audience. Yes. So, how willing are you to help or introduce yourself first and the institution? Okay, I'm Guaya Pabigat from University of the Philippines, Cebu. My question is, how willing are you to help or educate people to the importance of environmental sustainability if you will win or you will not win this coming election?
There was the saying that, if the trees can give Wi-Fi, I think we all will be planting trees.
Yes.
But the problem is, the trees can only give oxygen for life. We don't. Did you get that? So what is important here that people should realize that if we use too much energy, these are disasters. Disasters. It's very clear. If you use too much air condition, you use too much energy, like refrigerators, you use your car most of the time, going back and forth, you're actually giving disasters. And what is important for the students is to impart the knowledge that you have to other people. For example, in the Philippines, we have we're about 100 million Filipinos. And our cell phones is greater than that of the population. It's 120 million cell phones. The cell phones, you have chargers, right? Each charger will consume 10 watts when it's charging. When it is not charging, it's basically using a minimum of 1 watt. So kung dili nimo tangtangon, it's 1 watt. Let us say, 50 million will not unplug, which I think it's more than 50 million. If that 50 million will not unplug, the power that will be consumed is 50 million watts. Did you get that? If that is 50 million watts, that is not used, actually, the power or the cost of power is 500,000 pesos an hour. Okay? You multiply it by 24, it's 12 million pesos we're throwing away, plus the fact that we are actually giving greenhouse gas up there. Now, if we can educate people that, look, every time you are going to have a cell phone which is full, you remove it. So everybody removes it. Then we can actually save 12 million. TV LED, you have a remote control, then when you off using your remote control, the TV screen is off. Did you get that? But if you are not going to unplug the TV is still on. You see that? How many TVs all over the Philippines that are still on, but the screen is off? I think 99%. We should educate people in order for them to realize that this should be done. Last thing, this is very noticeable. When you're building a house, people in the Philippines use color roof. And according to science, color will absorb energy, will absorb heat. And what is the reason why that the roof in the Philippines are all colored? Because of the looks. Now, if that is colored blue, green, yellow, red, it will absorb heat and it brings the heat inside the house. Then when the house is so hot, what we do is to what? To buy air conditioning units. But the problem with us, we don't know what is comfort cooling. Comfort cooling for Filipinos is 24 degrees centigrade. But what we do, we put it to the highest mode, which is 17 degrees centigrade. Now, the motor in the aircon has two. One motor is for air conditioning as the compressor, which is 80%, and the other one is fan. So meaning to say, if you are going to put that to 17 degrees, the motor doesn't stop at all. And then when the motor doesn't stop at all, it's very cold. What happened? You make ourselves comfortable, you buy comforters. When we buy comforters, this is grabe kabaga, palit na sagdag, what? Washing machine, which are very big. And this is something that we Filipinos don't realize that we're actually killing ourselves. This is a practice which is not good and this is not sustainable. So, I don't know if you guys know that. And I think you know this, you don't practice it.
Okay, do you still have questions? Yes.
Good afternoon, Councilor Nestor Archival. I'm Magdalena Robinson. I'm from the Cebu United Rainbow LGBTIQ sector. And I'm not here to ask you anything about LGBT advocacy, but it's very interesting to listen to your green advocacy. So I'm interested in if there is an existing ordinance about green advocacies in the city. That's the first question. And my second question is how to convert existing buildings and infrastructures into a green infrastructure development. So I hope there are guidelines. I hope if there's an existing guideline, how to convert it into a green, responsive buildings or infrastructure. So that's my questions.
Okay, let me answer you first the last question because this is the one that I was able to digest. Now, buildings, I am trying to make an ordinance right now. They call that as a green building code. Green building code is meaning to say what you're going to do is to build a building which will have a less harm to the environment. When we talk about green buildings, what comes out into our minds basically is the energy cost. Because energy is the one that's giving too much greenhouse gas. Okay? In the design of old or new buildings, lighting fixtures that is used should be environmental friendly. So less carbon footprint. Now, if you use incandescent lamp, the price is very cheap, but the overhead is very, it's very costly. We have technologies which we call as the light emitting diodes, which could be used in lighting because this is the one that we normally use. That's number one. That's lighting. Okay? The second one is the air conditioning units because 60% of the house or in the building is actually consuming electricity coming from air conditioning units. In air conditioning units, when you choose an air conditioning units, you should have a high EER, energy efficiency ratio. If the energy efficiency ratio is high, then gamay kag bayranan. But this is costly, mahal. If the energy efficiency ratio is low, barato niya, pero dako kag bayranan. The next here, again, I'm mentioning about aircon. Air conditioning units or aircon basically depends on what is the temperature of the house. Okay? Akong gisulti ganina, if you have a roof which is cold roof, it will bring heat inside the house. Okay? So the one that I'm going to suggest, if you're building a building or a house, your house, what you do is to use a color which is light color, because light colors actually reflects the heat of the sun. Did you get it? And the second one is the orientation of the house. The orientation of the house is very important because our wind is coming from the north going to south. We call that as amihan. And you have another wind which we call as the south, from the south to the north. So when you are going to orient the house, okay, make sure that there is what we call that as a passive cooling. When the air comes in one entry, it goes out to the other exit, di ba? So meaning to say, the moment there's airflow, this would be less ang ikainit. So meaning to say, dili kay ka magamit og aircon. Now, the other thing is refrigeration. In the house, 30%, mostly 30% of the cost is coming from refrigeration or your refrigerator. There are so many ways to minimize cost. The refrigerator, when the refrigerator is open, no? Sige, open mo, this will have a high cost. Kanuman, because when you open it, coldness goes out, and then the motor will work hard in order to bring back the coldness. Nakakuha ka? So meaning to say, you need to have a technique. I am teaching this to the mothers. When you buy, let us say, kanang isda, when you buy fish, it's very cheap there in, let's say, in Pasig. 4 kilos, for example. Then in 4 kilos, then, manguta na ka, do you know when you, it's time na? 1 minute. Now, you know already, pila ka kilo man ang imong gamiton in one cooking. But most often, when you buy kaning isda, you would just clean it and put that inside the fridge. And when you want to use it, pakuhawan niyo the entire thing, meaning to say you open, then you close, then you actually use the tap, use the water, and then throw the water away, and then cut. Then ibalik na sa dimo. The best way is you should know pila man ka kilo mong kinahanglan. If you need 1 kilo, then you put 1 kilo each in one plastic. If half kilo, you have 8. Diba ka? And then, if 4 kilos, 1 kilo each, ibutang na nimo, the moment you use it, you just remove 1 kilo and you close it and that's finished. Did you get that? So these are the things, small things that you should realize, and we need to practice this at home. And take note that all over the Philippines, if we can do this, then we will bring down the electricity cost, thus bring down
Sorry,
the
sir, this is all the time that
Okay,
we
thank
have
you.
for you.